You are now tuned in to Global Weekly Headlines, Wednesdays at 5 a.m. on Thoughts Express TV. I'm your host, McRob. Let's talk news. Good morning, world. It's your host, McRob, and we're back with another episode of Global Weekly Rundown on Thoughts Express TV. Today is Wednesday, November 12th. Let's dive right in. All right, so the Democratic Party is in turmoil. This week, U.S. politics took a chaotic turn as Democratic leader Chuck Schumer found himself under heavy fire from his own party. So 8 Senate Democrats broke ranks and voted with Republicans to end the ongoing federal government shutdown, which is a move that blindsided Schumer and actually infuriated progressives. Now, many within the party are demanding new leadership, calling for Schumer to step aside after what they describe as a betrayal of the Democratic unity. Now, the shutdown, which has reached into record territory, this is one of the longest shutdowns in history. It continues to hit federal workers and essential programs hard. And here's the kicker. While Washington plays political chess, millions of Americans are feeling the consequences firsthand. This internal rift, it's not just about votes, it's about vision. The Democrats are struggling to decide whether they'll fight the policy purity or, find middle ground to keep the government running. Next up, we have the SNAP benefits battle. So while the political fights rage on, the human cost is mounting, right? A federal judge this week blocked the administration's attempt to roll back full SNAP benefits. That's the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, which feeds about 42 million Americans. That's a huge chunk of people. Now, the administration wanted to issue only 65% of the usual aid amid budget concerns during the shutdown. But the court said no, not so fast. The judge ruled that slashing benefits during a crisis could potentially, lead to irreparable harm to families and children who rely on, the food assistance. So for everyday people, this ruling is a temporary lifeline. For policymakers, it's another reminder that social safety nets shouldn't be used as leverage, in political standoffs. And from a financial standpoint, especially for listeners in banking like myself and community finance, these benefit delays ripple straight through, to local economies, consumer spending, and even credit trends. All right. Next up, we have the Supreme Court upholds same-sex marriage. So over at the Supreme Court, history stood firm. The nation's highest court declined to revisit the landmark Obergefell versus Hodges decision. That was the 2015 ruling that legalized same-sex marriage across the United States. Now, a petition led by former Kentucky clerk Kim Davis asked the court to overturn marriage equality based on religious freedom grounds. But the justices refused to take the case, leaving the previous ruling intact. So for the LGBT, community, this is a victory of reassurance in uncertain political times. It's also symbolic because it shows that despite political polarization, some foundational rights, remain untouchable, at least for now. Next up, we have Trump's $2,000 tariff dividend promise. So on the economic front, interim President Trump is back in the spotlight with a big and controversial proposal, which is a $2,000 tariff dividend for most Americans. Now, the plan, which was announced via social channels, claims that funds from tariff revenues would be distributed directly to citizens, excluding high-income earners. It sounds good on paper, right? But economists are actually waving the red flag. They're saying that the math doesn't add up. The estimated costs could exceed $600 billion in a year, which is far more than what tariffs actually bring in. Critics, they're calling it political theater ahead of campaign season, and supporters are, calling it bold populism. Either way, the proposal sparks a wider conversation about trade, taxation, and, what economic stimulus should really look like in 2025. Speaking of Trump, there's another headline stirring the global media pot. So the president is actually threatening to sue BBC for $1 billion, and he's accusing the broadcaster of defaming him in a recent documentary about the January 6th riot. Trump claims that the BBC deliberately edited his speech to make him appear responsible for inciting the violence. The network has since admitted an error in editing, but insists there was no malicious intent. So this isn't just another lawsuit. It's spotlight on journalism itself, right? And in a world where content can be clipped, edited, and shared in seconds, the line between context and distortion is thinner than ever, right? It's a warning. I think this is a big warning for creators, journalists, and yes, even podcasters like myself about the responsibility we all carry when shaping, narratives. Try to ensure that you're getting your information from legitimate sources and ensure what you're putting out is reflective, of the truth, in essence, just to protect yourself. Now, let's shift gears to law enforcement and immigration. So, reports indicate that several Border Patrol agents, including senior official Gregory Bovino, are preparing to pull out of Chicago amid controversy over their methods and federal local tensions. So, sources say that the team could redeploy to southern or east coast cities, including Charlotte, North Carolina. Now, this comes after months of scrutiny over how immigration enforcement is being handled in urban centers, which reignite debates about federal overreach and sanctuary city policies. Now, before we wrap up, I just want to give y'all a few more stories that's making international noise. So in the Middle East, ceasefire talks continue between Israel and Gaza factions, with limited humanitarian aid reaching affected areas. Over in Europe, energy prices are stabilizing slightly after last month's surge, but inflation remains a major concern across the EU. And in the Caribbean, in Jamaica specifically, frustration grows over the post-hurricane aid allocation after the government announced 10 million Jamaican dollars per constituency, sparking outrage from residents who, they're saying that the response doesn't match the damage. And lastly, we have Asia. China continues to expand AI surveillance infrastructure, which raises global concerns over privacy and digital governance. All right, so that's your global weekly rundown for the week ending November 11th. We saw political shakeups, legal battles, bold economic promises, and social movements holding the line, which all reminds us of how fast the world shifts, in just a few days. If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure to hit subscribe, drop a comment, and share this with someone who, likes to stay informed. It's your host, Mick Rob. Stay aware, stay resilient, and remember, every headline is a lesson if you're willing to read between the lines. See you next Wednesday, same time, 5 a.m. sharp, for another Global Weekly Rundown. Peace.